This video contains graphic reenactments and discussions of a violent crime, including themes of torture, murder, and hate crimes. These scenes may be disturbing to some viewers. Please watch with caution and discretion. Our goal is to honor Scotty Joe Weaver's memory and shed light on the tragic reality of hate-fueled violence. If you or someone you know is struggling, please seek support from trusted resources. There's something haunting about the quiet back roads of small-town Alabama. The air is thick with humidity, and the pine trees sway lazily in the breeze. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name, where you wave at your neighbor as you pass by. But even the most peaceful places can hold dark secrets. Secrets that, once uncovered, leave a scar that never fully fades. Tonight, we're diving into the tragic and brutal murder of 18-year-old Scotty Joe Weaver, a crime that shocked the town of Bay Minette and the entire Gulf Coast. How could a young man full of life and promise meet such a gruesome end at the hands of those he trusted most? Stay with us as we uncover the truth, the betrayal, and the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred. Scotty Joe Weaver was born on March 26, 1986. He was just like any other teenager, full of dreams, ambitions, and a hunger for life. When he was 10, Scotty was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. It is aggressive cancer that attacks the lymphatic system. After 2 years of chemotherapy, Scotty went into remission. Friends and family remember him as a kind-hearted young man with a bright spirit. He worked hard, supporting himself financially while living in a mobile home in Bay Minette, Alabama.
Everybody that knew him as a very outgoing person, knew him as someone you really couldn't be upset around, really. He'd always have a way of making you laugh. He always had a great personality, very cheerful, and just someone that you just couldn't be around without knowing that everything's going to be okay, or that.
But Scotty was also different. He was openly gay in a place where acceptance wasn't always guaranteed. And for that, he sometimes faced ridicule and judgment. He was called slurs, harassed, and made to feel like an outsider in his own community. He endured bullying from a young age. And even as he grew older, the discrimination never fully went away. People whispered behind his back, and some outright rejected him. As a result, Scotty dropped out of Baldwin County High School and worked at the Waffle House in Bay Minette. It was known the townsfolk would drive by gay people's homes and throw beer bottles. Still, he remained unapologetically himself, pushing forward with a resilient heart.
There's just so much persecution. I mean, I go to work every night, and I've got teenagers walking by the aisle that I work on, calling me names.
Now?
Right now, even though everything that's been going on.
His mother, Mary Weaver, later shared how proud she was of her son for living authentically. She said, "If you love your child, it doesn't matter." But that same courage would ultimately put him in harm's way. Scotty had friends, at least that's what he thought. He shared his mobile home with two of them, his close friend, Nicole Kelsey, her baby, and her boyfriend, Christopher Gaines. They were people he trusted, people he let into his life, and stayed in his home free of charge. But, as we've seen time and time again, trust can be misplaced, and friendships can turn deadly. The day of July 18th, Scotty spoke with his mother after work. During this conversation, he expressed his frustrations with Nicole and Chris leeching off him and taking over his place. Martha, his mother, was relieved that her son realized that his friends were deadbeats who did not deserve his friendship. After saying goodbye to his mother, Scotty headed home not to rest after his graveyard shift at Waffle House, but to get ready to go back to work. On the night of July 18th, 2004, something sinister unfolded. Scotty's so-called friends, along with a third accomplice, Robert Porter Jr., lured him into a nightmare he would never escape from. What started as a brutal beating quickly escalated into something far worse. The trio tied him up, gagged him, and subjected him to hours of unimaginable torture. He was beaten repeatedly, his body covered in cuts and bruises. His attackers slashed his throat and stabbed him multiple times, ensuring maximum pain and suffering. They then strangled him, watching as his life slipped away, but even death wasn't enough for them. They doused his lifeless body in gasoline and set him on fire, hoping to erase the evidence of their horrific crime. The autopsy report would later reveal the sheer brutality of the attack. His body was barely recognizable, a charred remnant of the young man who had once been so full of life. But evil leaves a mark, and the truth always finds its way to the surface. Scotty did not show up for his shift, nor did he call in. After 2 days, his co-workers started to worry. His absences were uncharacteristic. On July 20th, Chris Gaines and Nicole went to Martha's home. They told her they had not seen Scotty in a few days. They urged her to call the police. On July 22nd, 4 days after she'd last seen or heard from Scotty, she reported her beloved son missing.
It was summer 2004. Scotty Weaver's body was discovered in a remote area of Baldwin County, burned beyond recognition. 3 friends would be arrested, charged with capital murder.
4 days later, on July 22nd, a horrific discovery was made. Scotty's burned and partially decomposed body was found dumped in a wooded area about 8 miles from his home. He was identified by his dental records. The crime scene was nothing short of gruesome, and the small town of Bay Minette would never be the same. Investigators quickly launched into action, piecing together the puzzle, and it didn't take long for the pieces to fit.
Family members of 18-year-old Scotty Weaver say they saw or spoke to him.
48 hours after the gruesome discovery of 18-year-old Scotty Weaver's body found burnt and decomposing in a wooded area.
Suspicion fell almost immediately on Scotty's roommates. The evidence was overwhelming, and soon the truth came tumbling out. Nicole Kelsey, Robert Porter Jr., and Christopher Gaines were arrested and charged with capital murder. But this wasn't just a murder. It was a hate crime. Robert and Christopher was known to taunt Scotty for being gay. Prosecutors argued that Scotty's sexual orientation played a role in the sheer brutality of the attack. His killers saw him as different, and in their twisted minds, that was enough reason to end his life in one of the most brutal ways imaginable. After they robbed him for $80, they tied Scotty to a chair, brutalized, and strangled him. Investigators believed Chris and Robert were responsible for the torture and the killing. Nicole did not participate in the act, but she was present as her best friend died. Chris and Robert then drove Scotty's body to a field and set him on fire. Robert, Nicole, and Christopher all pointed at each other when it came to who was responsible for the murder. Lum Jr., Scotty's brother, said, "Nicole swears she was forced to go along with the others or they would hurt her baby." Chris says that the other guy, Porter, and Nicole did it. All 3 blamed the others and refused to take responsibility. On April 30th, 2007, Christopher Gaines, who was identified as the ringleader, pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Robert Porter Jr. pleaded guilty to murder and first-degree robbery in September 2007. He received 2 consecutive life sentences. Nicole Kelsey, though received a lesser sentence, was also held accountable for her role in the crime. Kelsey pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment for conspiracy to commit murder with the eligibility of parole in 2013.
She did not physically participate in the murder, and when she agreed to a lengthy jail sentence, we thought that was the best decision in this case.
For the first time since the ordeal began, Martha Weaver addressed the court, and specifically Kelsey.
Why did she do it? Why did she plot to hurt him like that? Because he never done nothing to her. He always tried to help her. He loved her more than anything.
But for Scotty's family, no punishment could undo the horror. No sentence could bring him back.
Scotty, you got to realize what you're doing. I says, there's people out there will hurt you on stuff like that.
His lifestyle may not have set well with somebody else, and they just took care of him because of that. I know how people don't understand.
And it's because other people didn't approve of him. They didn't give them the right to take his life or to hurt him.
Scotty's funeral was held at Crossroads Church of God in Bay Minette, Alabama. Close to 250 people showed up. He had a profound impact on those who met him during his inspiring short life. His casket was dark blue and dotted with tiny white doves. Scotty's favorite flower red roses and baby's breath lay top. To the side of his casket, a photo of him smiling at the camera during a summer kayaking trip sat alongside the casket. But even death, he could not escape the torment he faced in life. Reverend Helen Stewart, who did not hide her bigotry during the service as she preached, casted a dark shadow over the tranquil scene. Attendees walked out unable to listen to her hateful ranting. Lum Jr. said, "She basically said Scotty was in hell, and while most of the congregation was gay or bisexual, she told us we were all going to hell if we didn't change our ways."
Anti-gay group Westboro Baptist Church planning to protest Crossroads Church of God, where gay murdered teen Scotty Weaver's funeral was held.
God hates fags. God hates fags is a serious, profound, theological statement. It's not okay to be gay. It's a sin. You're going to hell for it. You mean the family of these dead fags? I'm preaching to them. You killed them. You killed them. God Almighty gave you that little child and imposed upon you immediately a solemn duty to raise him or her in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, and tell them what sin is, and tell them what wrath is, and tell them what the judgment day is certainly coming, tell them what heaven is, and tell them what hell is. They didn't do any of that. They encouraged them, like the preachers in the churches they went, telling them God loves everybody, and God loves you unconditionally. All that does is fan the flames of fag lust and hasten their demise. I'm the only one telling them the truth, for God's sake. Look, I'm the only one that loves them.
The murder of Scotty Joe Weaver sent shockwaves through the community, and even years later, his story is remembered as a chilling reminder of the dangers of intolerance and blind hatred. His case became one of many that highlighted the urgent need for stronger hate crime laws. It took years, but in 2009, President Barack Obama signed the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act into law, expanding protections for victims like Scotty. It was a step forward, but for his loved ones, it came far too late. After his brother's death, Lum Jr. vowed that he would not let his brother's death be in vain. However, during his interview with a reporter at the Waffle House where his brother once worked, a group of teens sat in the corner, loudly shouting homophobic slurs and making sick jokes. It seemed nothing changed since Scotty's murder. Lum Jr. hoped Alabama lawmakers would change the state's hate crime statute to include sexual orientation, but that has not happened. In 2021, Lum Jr. passed away and was buried alongside his brother. Scotty Joe Weaver was just 18 years old, his whole life ahead of him. But because of hatred, because of betrayal, that life was stolen in the cruelest way imaginable. His story deserves to be told, remembered, and learned from. Hate has no place in this world. If Scotty's story teaches us anything, it's that we must stand up, speak out, and protect those who are vulnerable. If you or someone you know is facing discrimination or violence, don't stay silent. There are people who care, who will listen, who will fight alongside you. Let's keep Scotty's memory alive by working toward a world where no one has to suffer for simply being themselves. If you find this story compelling, please like, share, and subscribe to True Crime Sisters for more stories that deserve to be heard. Remember to leave a comment or send us a message about the case you would like us to cover. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.